So good afternoon, friends, and welcome back to the online learning platform at Department of Civil Engineering, BMS Institute of Technology and Management, Bangalore. So today you're with me for the course Municipal Wastewater Engineering, which is popularly termed under Public Health Engineering or Environmental Engineering. In the previous session, we had understood about low-cost wastewater treatment technologies, wherein you had brief understanding of knowledge on the technologies related to oxidation pond, aerobic pond, facultative pond, okay, oxidation ditch. Now, in today's presentation, we shall basically deal with sludge, that is handling, generation and treatment of sludge. So in today's presentation, first I'll introduce you to the concept with respect to which are the sources wherein sludge is being produced. Okay, what are its typical properties, or with respect to its quantity, why do we need to treat sludge, and what are the various type of treatments which is given for sludge. I will briefly introduce you to all these attributes. Okay, in the subsequent classes we will be dealing with each type of treatment in detail, but in today's presentation we shall be dealing with stabilizing the sludge, wherein we shall speak about sludge digestion system. In this we shall be talking about aerobic and anaerobic digesters. We shall also try to have an idea of what are the factors which influence sludge digestion. Finally, I shall summarize the same for you before listing the references for your kind perusal. Okay, friends, now whenever you speak about sludge generation, we need to understand one thing. In any municipal wastewater treatment plant, what is that you're treating? You're treating the municipal wastewater. So eventually, what is your end product? From primary treatment to secondary treatment to your tertiary or advanced or miscellaneous treatment, what is that which is being produced? There are two products. Primarily, the first product is the treated effluent, that is your purely your wastewater component, which is mostly water itself. The second end product or the second byproduct would be your sludge. Okay, now sludge, or in simple words, we can also call it as residual solids. Please understand, this is the byproduct or end product of your municipal wastewater treatment, wherein you have given physical treatment, chemical treatment, or biological treatment. Now, if you look at this slide, you can very clearly understand that sludge is being produced from the primary treatment, and sludge is also being produced from the secondary treatment. And you know very well that in primary treatment, in secondary treatment, the three kind of forces that you employ is physical forces, chemical forces, and biological forces with respect to the phase of treatment. Okay, now let's move further. We need to understand one important attribute. Sludge is very essential. Even when you had learned in last class about facultative ponds or oxidation ditches or anything for that matter, all right, so you know very well that sludge is something which decides the effective depth of the reactor. Sludge is something which decides the effective volume of the reactor. Therefore, it is very important that sludge should be removed periodically. Okay, it is very essential that you have the right biological conditions in the sludge, because how sludge is being treated, it could be an aerobic treatment, it could be anaerobic treatment. Okay, probably you are exerting sediment oxygen demand. So all this is very essential when it comes to your municipal wastewater treatment plant. If you do not remove sludge effectively periodically from your primary sedimentation tank or your secondary clarifier, it can disturb the proceedings of your municipal wastewater treatment plant. It can spoil the entire functioning of your municipal wastewater treatment plant. Okay, so please understand that sludge generation, sludge handling, and sludge removal is very critical. Okay, and we need to ensure that whatever design attributes are there, it must be followed judiciously and sincerely. So now the next question is, okay, why should I treat the sludge? I just spoke to you about how to or why to remove the sludge. See, whenever you speak about sludge, please understand The sludge itself is again, 96 to 99% water itself. It is mostly the moisture content only. It's the remaining fraction is only the solids part. So obviously, your sludge also will contain pathogens. Okay, your sludge also will contain undesirable organic matter. Okay, your sludge can definitely be a potential cause for bad odor. Okay, sludge can also attract vectors or flies. So due to these problems, due to these disadvantages, due to these lacunae, it is necessary that sludge must be treated also. Just like you're treating the wastewater before disposing it into any entity, maybe a lake or a river or a sewer system. All right, just like that, the sludge also must be treated. Without treating the sludge, it should not be disposed for any purpose it may be. Okay, now I'll give you a brief understanding of what are the different kind of treatments that we talk about. So of course, in the subsequent class, we shall understand the importance and the meaning of what is digestion, drying, incineration, disposal, dewatering, or concentration. Incidentally, digestion is what that we are dealing with today. Okay, now see, in case if you can look at the image, whenever you say thickening, okay, whenever you say thickening, basically the objective is to remove the moisture content of your sludge. The moment you do that, the volume is enormously reduced. Okay, whenever you talk about digestion, that is what we are dealing today. We are basically talking about stabilization. Okay, so wherein we are trying to decompose the organic matter which is there in the sludge by both aerobic means and anaerobic means. Okay, let us say you're talking about conditioning. Conditioning is a process wherein you try to improve the drainability of the digested sludge. How we do it, we'll discuss in the subsequent class, whether it is physical conditioning or chemical conditioning. Now let us say you're talking about drying. Okay, so again, drying is a process wherein you're trying to remove the moisture content, and you're actually making the sludge to be ready for probably to be used as a compost or a manure or probably for incineration. So my dear friends, there are many, okay, there are many methods and techniques which are available for handling, treatment, and disposal of sludge. With this basic information, let us start with understanding of sources of sludge. As you are aware, okay, the sludge will be produced only from your primary clarifier and your secondary clarifier. Okay, now whenever you say primary clarifier, the sludge which is produced is called primary sludge, as you can see that is inscribed here. Okay, now primary sludge is that sludge which is produced from your primary settling tank or your primary sedimentation tank. Okay, now secondary sludge is the sludge which is produced from your secondary treatment. Now here you need to be very clear that the characteristics of your primary sludge and your secondary sludge would vary. Okay, and that is obvious because of what is that you are employing when it comes to your treatment technology. You know very well that when you speak about secondary treatment, okay, it is not just the biological process, probably you can also go for chemical process. Okay, now let us look further. Okay, now let us say we are talking about a primary sludge which is being produced from primary treatment. Friends, in this kind of sludge you typically will find fine silt, okay, vegetables, fecal matter. Okay, all of these have gray color. Okay, now typically what happens is these kind of sludges, they stick to the floor of the settling basin. Please note, primary sludge cannot be drained easily. Okay, now let's move on to the second one. So you know very well about secondary treatment wherein you employ trickling filters or you employ activated sludge process. In the case of activated sludge process, you know very well that it is not merely a sludge, but it is basically an activated sludge. This is what we had learned in previous classes. Okay, as a matter of fact, if you're looking at activated sludge, okay, the color is probably golden brown. Okay, and it has actually a pleasantly earthly color. Okay, and yes, even this sludge that you're referring to, it contains 98 to 99% water itself. Okay, the remaining 2 to 1% is the organic matter. All right, now since you're talking about return sludge, since you're talking about activated sludge, definitely you can expect that this sludge will also contain microorganisms in dead form and living form. Okay, now if you're talking about the sludge which is produced due to the operation of trickling filter, please note sludge is not produced in trickling filter. The sludge is produced in the secondary clarifier. Okay, now the sludge which is produced as a result or as an outcome of treatment with trickling filter, okay, this sludge basically contains more of dissolved organic matter. Okay, and yes, of course, it may also contain some non-settlable solids which are settlable by adsorption. All right, now having understood about basic attributes with respect to your secondary sludge coming from your biological treatment, let's try to understand with respect to sludge which is produced from your chemical treatment. You know very well that, depending on the characteristics, you can also go for secondary treatment wherein you tend to employ chemical precipitation. Okay, you tend to go for flocculants, so you have the formation of flocks. Okay, and you also have settlement taking place. Now basically what will this sludge contain? Yes, it is pretty obvious that the sludge which is formed here, it will definitely contain precipitated chemicals. Okay, so mostly, okay, in this type of sludge, it is mainly 70 to 90% of suspended solids itself. But please remember and please make a note, okay, it also depends on what chemical you have employed for coagulation, for flocculation. Okay, so friends, we are done with the basic understanding of what is sludge, how is sludge produced, from where all sludge is being produced, and what is its basic characteristics. Now let's start with the first type of treatment for sludge. Okay, and herein I'm talking about basically sludge stabilization. As I told you, when I say sludge stabilization, I'm basically talking about decomposition of the organic fraction. So when I say decomposition of the organic fraction, I am mostly talking about aerobic process and the anaerobic process. Okay, so in simple words, when you say sludge digestion, it's all about breaking the complex organic matter which is there in the sludge into liquid, that is water, and into simple organics. Okay, now these simpler compounds are actually stable and they don't produce any foul odor. All right, now with this basic information, I'll also be explaining to you when it comes to your anaerobic sludge digestion system about the different types, that is your standard rate and your high rate. Also, we will be understanding the various factors which actually influence sludge digestion. Okay, friends, now when you speak about the various factors which are influencing the sludge digestion, as you can see, okay, these factors could be physical factors, these factors could be chemical, okay, these factors could be microbiological. Okay, now have a look at the image. All right, so basically when you look at any treatment setup with respect to a digester, okay, so you are basically talking about water, that is wastewater, you're talking about organic fraction, you're talking about microbes. Obviously the various factors which will be very essential when it comes to sludge digestion will be temperature, okay, the dissolved oxygen. Okay, that is basically wherein you decide whether you're going to have an aerobic treatment or anaerobic treatment. Okay, further you also will be discussing with respect to pH value. Okay, we will be understanding this much better, okay, when we discuss about your anaerobic treatment, because typically speaking, microorganisms are pH sensitive. All right, in fact some of the gases which are being produced here are also with respect to a specific range of pH. Okay, let us say for that matter methane. Okay, now apart from temperature, oxygen level and pH, also one of the essential criteria which influences sludge digestion or improves its efficiency is seeding. Friends, just like an activated sludge process wherein you return a fraction of the settled sludge, in the same manner, okay, here also seeding is carried out with the digested sludge, which actually contains microorganisms which are actually active in nature. Now, not only that, okay, just like your flocculation process, here also mixing and stirring is done so that there is an effective mix and there is an effective interaction between the impurity which has to be removed and the microorganisms. Now let us say you're talking about temperature as a matter of fact. Okay, when it comes to sludge digestion, okay, there are basically three zones. Please make a note of it. Okay, there are three zones. That is, psychrophilic, mesophilic, okay, and thermophilic. So whenever you're talking about, the temperature when it is between 50 to let's say 68°F, okay, so you're talking about psychrophilic. Actually, friends, this is not very effective, because you don't find many microorganisms to be active in your psychrophilic range. But then the most popular is your mesophilic, wherein the temperature range is more than 85 to 100°F. So whenever you talk about any technologies available, okay, especially in anaerobic system, all these systems will have a temperature which is at mesophilic range. Yes, there is one more range, the higher threshold, which is 120 to 135°F. This is thermophilic. Now, what actually happens is, as you move on from psychrophilic to mesophilic to thermophilic, the number of days which is required for sludge digestion reduces. For example, psychrophilic may take about 180 days for sludge digestion. But if you come to mesophilic, you hardly need 1 month. Okay. Now, if it is thermophilic, which is basically class A sludge, all right, here you hardly require, let's say 2 weeks, or let's say a dozen number of days. Okay. Now, let's now start with aerobic sludge digestion. So yes, friends, this is again a biological sludge treatment process. And as it says, aerobic. So you are employing aeration. You are enabling aeration to stabilize the waste sludge. Obviously, how is the sludge being broken down? How are you reducing the total volume of the sludge? You are doing it with the help of aerobic bacteria, not anaerobic bacteria. So basically the aerobic bacteria, now here it may be strictly aerobes or facultative aerobes. What they do is they break down the volatile solids. Okay. Now please understand, if you want your aerobic sludge digestion to be effective, you need to create conditions wherein the microorganism eventually will end up using their own cellular mass as the food. Okay. Now, when it comes to your aerobic sludge digestion, yes, not just temperature, not just your SRT, not just your pH. One of the essential criteria, which is essential, is dissolved oxygen. You have to make sure that your dissolved oxygen is at least 0.5 to 2 mg per liter. In case if you are unable to maintain at least 0.5 mg per liter, then your system will become anaerobic in nature. Okay, for an aerobic sludge digestion, you have to make sure that the temperature is always more than 50°F. Okay, that means it is beyond psychrophilic. Okay, now if you're talking about pH, okay, considering that it is aerobic in nature, it is always better that you keep the pH around 7, that is neutral range. Okay, and please understand, the byproduct of aerobic sludge digestion is basically carbon dioxide, because it is aerobic in nature. Had you gone for anaerobic condition, it would not have been CO2, it would have been CH4, that is methane. Okay, now how do you go about achieving aerobic sludge digestion? You can either go for intermittent batch operations, or you can go for continuous operations. Okay, now let us say you're talking about intermittent batch operations. Here what happens is, your waste sludge, okay, this will be fed, okay, at specific time intervals, and once the digestion is over, it will be removed. Okay, it's a plug-in system. But if you're looking at a continuous operation, what happens is, the entry and exit is simultaneous. That is, your sludge is entering and simultaneously the supernatant is being withdrawn. But my dear friends, aerobic sludge digestion is not very popular when compared to your anaerobic sludge digestion. Okay, now I'll just show you a small video to begin with.
A metropolitan areas with limited space and very high sludge volumes, energy production from WAS is often economically beneficial. In anaerobic digesters, microorganisms break down the organic matter in the sludge and convert parts of it to methane and natural gas.
I'll repeat this video. Watch once again.
The gas is then burnt to either generate electricity. In metropolitan areas with limited space and very high sludge volumes, energy production from WAS.
Listen once again.
In metropolitan areas with limited space and
large production of sludge.
Very high sludge volumes, energy production from WAS is often economically better.
Now, please look at the structure. Okay, what you're seeing here is basically an anaerobic digester. Okay, if you remember, if you recollect, in the previous slide, what I showed you, okay, it was a system which was just above the ground. But if you look at this system, okay, it is at a sufficient height above the ground itself. Okay, so let us say you're talking about a biogas generator. So biogas generator is something which is below the ground. Okay, but in this structure, you find a sufficient, okay, attribute which is above the ground. That is your superstructure.
Beneficial. In anaerobic digesters, microorganisms break down the organic matter in the sludge and convert parts of it to methane and natural gas. The gas is then burned to either generate electricity.
Now that's the best part. Unlike your aerobic treatment, why anaerobic treatment is popular is because, you know, the byproduct here is basically biogas, which is mostly methane, okay, and carbon dioxide, okay, and natural gas. So obviously, you know, when you are utilizing municipal wastewater sludge and you are subsequently, you know, employing it for treatment with anaerobic system, you can also, you know, generate revenue because you can actually replace a potential energy source with this. So now let's continue. All right. So now, what do you understand by anaerobic sludge digestion? Yes, it's pretty obvious, you know, just like aerobic digestion happened in the presence of oxygen, anaerobic sludge digestion will happen in the absence of it. Okay, therefore, the byproduct, you would not expect it to be carbon dioxide, rather it will be methane. Okay, probably you would not get nitrogen dioxide, probably it would be ammonia. Okay, and yes, it is more economically attractive. Okay, you are potentially generating an energy source, but there is a small catch. It is pretty difficult to operate it, and your operation and maintenance should be pretty, you know, you should be very good at that, because, you know, you're talking about biogas, which is flammable. Okay, you're talking about something which can explode. Okay, now let's go further. Now, basically, whenever you talk about your anaerobic sludge digestion process, okay, you have got different types. Okay, now the simplest one would rather be your conventional digestion system. Okay, it's also called as low rate digestion system, or most often called as standard rate digestion system. Friends, the most obvious attribute of your standard rate is in this type of digestion system. Okay, the contents, they are neither heated, they are not mixed, and since they are not being heated, since they're not being mixed, okay, the efficiency will be lower. That is why it is called as low rate digestion system. On the other hand, if you're talking about a high rate digestion system, the contents in this system will be completely heated and it will be completely mixed. Okay, as a matter of fact, if you're talking about a high-rate digestion system, you know, the retention period, or rather the detention period, is around 10 to 20 days. Okay, now the high rate digestion process, okay, it definitely differs from your low rate process. Okay, because here the solids loading rate is much higher. In fact, it is 4 times. It is 4 times. Okay, now wherein your retention period is 10 to 20 days, please note it is actually half of what would have been the retention period for your low rate. Okay, now let's move further. Now, when you speak about your mixing, yes, there is complete mixing achieved here. Okay, it is not a partial mix, it's not a state of unmixed, it is complete mix. Okay, and the operating temperature is about 95 degree Fahrenheit. So friends, when I say 95 degree Fahrenheit, it is obvious that we are talking about mesophilic range, which is the most popular range. Okay, now when you talk about digestion systems, okay, you can always speak about single stage or you can speak about two stage processes. See, basically this depends on what is that you want to achieve. It's basically a combination, of a low rate digester and a high rate digester. When you combine them, okay, you call them as two-stage process. Okay, but what we need to understand is when you talk about the secondary digester, that is the second stage digester, its essential function is to separate the digested solids. Please have a look at this. Its essential purpose is to separate the digested solids from the supernatant. Okay, so as you can see, this is in the primary digester, basically complete mixing takes place. But what happens in the secondary digester? Here the separation takes place wherein you separate. Okay, you remove the supernatant and you remove the digested biosolids. Friends, if you are actually going for a two-stage process, okay, then it is mostly done wherein you have a capacity for more than 1 million gallons per day of generation of sludge. Only if you have a huge vast generation of sludge, then you tend to go for this. And if you're looking at the retention period, or let us say detention period, in the first stage tank it is about 8 days. Okay, in the second stage tank it is about 22 days. The minimum retention that you need to maintain is 30 days. That is, at least 30 days of retention must be carried out. And yes, again in this system the tank is going to be heated up to 95 degree Fahrenheit so that you can maintain a mesophilic system. Okay, now please understand again, depending on the design process, the retention period from phase 1 to phase 2, that is from your primary digester to secondary digester, can change. For instance, let us say you are going for mechanical sludge dewatering process. If you do that, if in case you're going for mechanical sludge dewatering process, then the retention period of your primary digester will be reduced to 10 days. Okay, let us say you're going for sludge drying bed. Okay, in that case the retention period of your secondary digester is only about 15 days. Okay, but understand one essential criteria: the primary digestion tank, that is the first tank, okay, it is sized, it is actually sized to provide 75% of total tank design volume. Okay, now having said all this, having spoken about low rate digesters, having spoken about high rate digesters, okay, having spoken about two stage processes, now let's try to understand how exactly is the treatment taking place, how exactly is the breakdown happening, how exactly is the stabilization taking place, how is that we are able to break down the organic matter, okay, by aerobic process and anaerobic process. My friends, what you need to understand here is when you speak about anaerobic treatment, it doesn't mean that it is totally anaerobic. Actually, one part of the treatment is aerobic, but over a period of time, aerobic gets converted into anaerobic process. Please remember this. Anaerobic sludge digestion doesn't mean that it is 100% anaerobic. Initially, it will be aerobic in nature, and then it is going to become anaerobic. So as you can see in your slide, finally, what is that which is being produced? Okay, once anaerobic sludge digestion takes place, what is that is being produced? Obviously, the first will be the digested sludge. Okay, second will be the supernatant liquid, and the third will be gases which are evolved. See, these three products are also produced when you do aerobic sludge digestion. The only difference is what is the percentage production of digested sludge, what is the percentage production of supernatant liquid, and what are the gases which are being evolved. This is the main thing which is going to change. As I told you, in an aerobic process, you will have more of carbon dioxide. Okay, let us say you have Nitrobacter, Nitrosomonas, you also will have nitrogen dioxide. Okay, but let's say you're talking about anaerobic process, it be very less carbon dioxide, it will be more of methane. And let us say you have Pseudomonas, then you will have production of gases such as ammonia. So my friends, from aerobic to anaerobic, the gases which are evolving are different. Okay, and please understand, anaerobic digestion is more effective when compared to aerobic. Therefore, the proportion in which sludge is digested and supernatant liquid is produced will definitely change. So if you're looking at this image, typically, okay, you have 3 steps: acid fermentation, acid regression, and alkaline fermentation. If I want to put it in a simpler manner, the first one is called as hydrolysis. Okay, now the second step is called as acidogenesis. The third step is called as acetogenesis, and the last step is called as methanogenesis. So what is hydrolysis? So hydrolysis is a process, as you can see here. Okay, it is going to transform your suspended organic matter into soluble organics. So hydrolysis is a process wherein your polymeric compounds, they're actually broken down by extracellular enzymes into monomeric or dimeric. In simple words, from complex organic matter to simpler organic matter, from suspended solids to dissolved or soluble solids. Okay, and please understand, when you want this hydrolysis step to happen, okay, then the pH should be around 6. And the important attribute that you must remember is, when it comes to your anaerobic sludge digestion, the rate limiting factor, the rate limiting step is hydrolysis itself. Okay, in other words, what I'm trying to tell you is, you need to have a large surface area which will facilitate, which will enable the enzymes to work faster. Okay, because you need more enzymes to attack the organic matter at the same time. Okay, so my dear friends, this is hydrolysis, the conversion of, the transformation of suspended organic matter to soluble organics. Okay, now what is the second step? Second step is acidogenesis. Simple words, it is nothing else but the production of acids. Acidogenesis, generation of acids. Okay, now in this, what happens? The soluble organics, okay, which were produced by hydrolysis, they are actually transformed into volatile fatty acids, mostly C2 and C4 acids. Okay, basically what happens here is, all your sugar, or let us say glucose, okay, they're all transformed into acids. See, hydrolysis is a very slow process. Okay, in fact, among all these 4 steps, hydrolysis is the slowest. But among all these 4 steps, acidogenesis is the quickest step. Okay, and please understand, since you're producing acid, what is going to happen to the pH? The pH in the digester is going to fall down, and this is going to facilitate the next step. Okay, when the pH comes down below 4, okay, when the pH of your digester drops below 4, then acidogenesis stops. Okay, please remember that. The next step is acetogenesis. Okay, so in acetogenesis, what happens? Your volatile fatty acids, okay, that is, let us say, a propionic acid, or let us say ethanol, or let us say butyric acid. Basically, what happens is, okay, they are combined with water and they get converted into acetic acid, hydrogen, and carbon dioxide. That is the third step, acetogenesis. Please remember, in all these steps, there is a different level of microorganisms which is employed. Okay, obviously the first step is aerobic bacteria. Okay, the second step is, that is, acidogenesis is not aerobic bacteria. Basically, it is anaerobic bacteria. It is anaerobic bacteria. Please understand that. While in your first step it is aerobic bacteria, in your second step it is anaerobic bacteria which becomes predominant. Okay, and please also understand one thing. Okay, since the pH has reduced, even which bacteria is going to be effective, that also will alter. Only those bacteria who can survive a pH below 4, only they will survive, and they are the ones who are predominant and active in acetogenesis. Finally, friends, we come to the last step, which is methanogenesis. In other words, generation of methane, CH4. So in this, what happens? Your acetic acid, carbon dioxide, hydrogen, they're all converted into methane. Okay, this is a stable digestion process wherein at least 70% of acetic acid, carbon dioxide, and hydrogen is transformed into methane itself. Okay, now sometimes this process is also called as acetylactic methanogenesis. Please understand, this is the most efficient conversion from energy standpoint, because in this step least amount of heat is produced. And please understand, when you speak about energy, when you speak about generation of electricity, it is basically biogas, gas from the living organisms. Basically you're talking about methane itself. Okay, now let's move further. So if you're talking about the construction and working of a sludge digester, you're basically talking about a RCC structure or a steel tank. As you can see in this image, typically they are cylindrical in nature. So whether it is RCC or steel, okay, they are cylindrical in nature. And please note, they will have a hopper bottom. And why do they have a hopper bottom? So that the sludge, the digested sludge, okay, it will come to the bottom and it can be withdrawn, it can be removed. Okay, now another attribute you need to understand is the roof part. Okay, there are two variations. One variation is wherein it's a fixed roof. Okay, it's a fixed roof, and in the other one it's a floating type. Friends, if you're looking at this image, okay, this is a floating type. So what basically happens is, you're talking about generation of gases. Okay, and you need to have a mechanism wherein the gases can be vented out, the gases can be removed. So if you are unable to do that due to certain reasons, when the gas builds up, when the pressure builds up, there's a potential chance that it may explode. So if you have a floating type of roof, the roof will gradually rise by few millimeters, thereby reducing the pressure which has been built up. And finally, of course, you can decant the gas as well. So how does your sludge digester work? Okay, now that you have understood the different types, the different principles, okay, of course you understood the 4 stages. It's very simple when it comes to your working. In the first step, okay, you will pump the raw sludge into the digester. That is the first step. I'll repeat. In the first step, okay, the raw sludge, okay, which is coming from your sources, okay, it is pumped into the digester. In the second step, it is seeded, which means already there is digested sludge which is present, that is introduced into this reactor. In the third step, there is mixing which is carried out. Why do you mix it? So that the digested sludge and the raw sludge can mix properly. Okay, now of course you can go for electricity power driven mechanical devices or a screw pump to stir the sludge. Okay, now the next step is your heating. Please understand, as I told you, heating is very essential. If you remember, in low rate there is no mixing, no heating, but if you come to your high rate, heating is also carried out, mixing is also carried out. So obviously this is a kind of high rate system, and especially if you are in a cold country, okay, digesters will definitely be produced with heating facility, that is to maintain optimum temperature. Please remember, cyclophilic, mesophilic, thermophilic, depends on your design. So if you're in a hot country, it's obviously the heat will be produced, and all these stages like hydrolysis, acidogenesis, okay, acetogenesis, all of them will subsequently produce heat as well. But in cold nations, you need to heat the contents. Okay, so what is the next step after you have done pumping, seeding, mixing, and heating? The next step is wherein decomposition takes place. That is what we have studied in the previous slide. Hydrolysis, acidogenesis, acetogenesis, methanogenesis, that is decomposition. Then after the decomposition has taken place, that is after your retention period or detention period, the next step is removal. What are you removing? You're going to remove the digested sludge. You're also going to remove supernatant. you're also going to remove the gas. And when you remove the gas, okay, it is basically not removed, rather it is collected for producing electricity. So that is the final stage, which is called as gas collection. Okay, now please understand, you know, when you talk about the amount of sludge gas which is being produced, okay, it varies from, let's say, about 0.014 to double it, you know, 0.028 meter cube per capita. Okay, now typically anytime your sludge gas is normally composed of 65% methane, 30% carbon dioxide, 5% nitrogen, and of course some inert gases. Please understand, most of the sludge gas is actually methane itself, because most of the decomposition is in anaerobic condition. But the reason you have 30% carbon dioxide is because in the initial phases, okay, carbon dioxide is also produced because the condition is aerobic in nature. Okay, typically these gases will have a calorific value of around 5400 to say 5850 kilocalories per meter cube. So friends, this was the lecture or presentation about sludge digester or sludge stabilization. So what have we understood today? We have understood the significance of why sludge must be treated. We also understood that when compared to your preliminary, primary, secondary and tertiary, sludge is mainly produced from the primary treatment and secondary treatment. Okay, now I'll show you a small video to end this presentation. We're going to understand advanced anaerobic digestion.
Cities and towns need to treat wastewater and its sludge, which is an energy-intensive process. At Anglian Water's Great Billing Wastewater Centre in the UK, they don't just treat the wastewater sludge. They convert it into valuable products using Suez's Monsul Advanced Anaerobic Digestion and a combined heat and power gas engine. Here's how it works. Anglian Water's Great Billing facility brings in sludge cake from other nearby wastewater plants via truck.
Please remember, now you're talking about off-site treatment. So obviously these are vendors or these are experts, these are consultants, okay, wherein they get the sludge from a nearby municipal wastewater treatment plant and they are utilizing it as a raw material to generate electricity. So typically what happens is the treatment of sludge, okay, it can be mostly on the plant or off the plant. So here you're talking about off plant.
After unloading the truck into the raw sludge system, the imported raw, untreated sludge cake is blended with the sludge indigenous to the Great Billing site. The combined sludge is blended prior to being transferred to the digestion plant to provide a consistent material for the advanced digestion process. The biological hydrolysis process is the key enabler of advanced anaerobic digestion.
Please remember, even I told you that hydrolysis is your most important step with respect to sludge digestion, the rate limiting step.
It pre-treats the sludge to allow the existing digesters to treat more sludge and increase the volatile solids conversion rate. The biological hydrolysis process optimizes the sludge temperature. Initial heating brings the sludge temperature to 42 degrees Celsius or 108 degrees Fahrenheit. In the final stages of the process, the temperature is raised to 55 degrees Celsius or 131 degrees Fahrenheit.
So when you say 131 degree Fahrenheit, okay, they are basically talking from 55 when they say, okay, obviously you remember very well that 50 to 68 degree Fahrenheit is psychrophilic, 85 to 100 degree Fahrenheit is mesophilic. So moment they're talking about 131 degree Fahrenheit, they are basically talking about thermophilic. Remember I told you class A sludge,
which neutralizes pathogens and enables the broader system to produce an enhanced biosolids product. From the biological hydrolysis plant, the hydrolyzed sludge is transferred to the digesters. In the absence of oxygen, the digesters' bacteria break down the sludge to create a biogas at an optimal rate.
You know why it is called biogas? It's actually a mixture of gases. Ammonia, nitrogen oxide, carbon dioxide, and yes, definitely, most importantly, 55 to 65% methane.
Because
Because of Suez's patented biological hydrolysis process, digester performance is dramatically improved, achieving higher gas retention with shorter digester retention time in comparison to conventional mesophilic digestion. This allows significantly more sludge to be treated in the existing infrastructure. At Great Billing, the amount of sludge treated through existing digesters was increased by 3 times using Suez's process, which allowed the plant to become Anglian Water's main regional sludge treatment center. Methane-rich biogas is drawn from the digesters and converted into renewable electricity and heat using CHP gas engines. At Great Billing, sufficient renewable electricity is generated to meet the demand of the entire wastewater treatment plant, with surplus electricity exported to the national grid. Heat recovered from the CHP unit's cooling systems and exhaust gases provides virtually all the heat needed to support Suez's advanced anaerobic digestion process. Following digestion, the digestate is sent for dewatering to produce cake used for land application as a nutrient-rich fertilizer. Suez's advanced anaerobic digestion technology can be applied to both existing and new-build wastewater treatment plants. Suez's process guarantees digester performance, which allows water utilities to harness the energy that is present in wastewater sludge and transform from energy users to energy producers.
So friends, okay, you saw a very successful patented technology wherein the wastewater was treated, wherein the sludge was treated, electricity was being harnessed or produced using this advanced anaerobic treatment system. Not only that, the end product after dewatering was also used as a manure. Okay, typically, please remember, whenever you talk about sludge digestion, basically you're talking about sludge stabilization. That is reduction of organic matter in a sludge to a more stable form. There are various ways of doing it. You can go for thermal way, wherein you apply heat to dry away the water, or let us say you can go for lime stabilization, wherein you apply lime until you attain the pH of 12. Okay, or you can go for composting, wherein you take the help of microorganisms. Okay, so physical forces, chemical forces, microbial forces. Among these, within your curriculum, what we need to deal with was aerobic and anaerobic digestion. Okay, now these are the references for your kind perusal, and in the next class we shall be dealing with how the municipal wastewater is disposed subjected to its treatment. So friends, I thank you for your kind patience, for staying throughout this presentation. And now I'll leave this forum open for any queries and any discussion that you would like to have. Thank you.